stray sailor walks into a barber's shop in the port of Athens. He mentions, almost in passing, a terrible thing that happened in Sicily. The barber drops everything and runs. To understand the news that breaks this man, we have to go back decades, back to a fragile peace between two empires that never really trusted each other at all. In 449 BC, Athens and Persia signed the Peace of Callias. On paper, the fighting was over. Each side would respect its own sphere. The peace would hold for 37 years, and that was remarkable. For 50 years before it, the two worlds had been locked in nearly continuous war, ever since the Ionian cities first rose in revolt in 499 BC. But this peace was a cold war. The two powers were resting in name only. Beneath the calm, each one meddled in the other's affairs, fighting through proxies, testing the edges of the agreement. The interference ran both ways. When the island of Samos, a proud member of the Athenian Empire, revolted, the great king of Persia prepared to back the rebels in open defiance of the peace. And when one of the king's own governors in Asia Minor turned against him, Athens quietly returned the favor, lending the rebel her support. Two empires picking at each other's wounds. Then, in 431 BC, a far worse war erupted. Not Greek against Persian this time, but Greek against Greek. Athens and Sparta tore into each other in the long, ruinous Peloponnesian War. It was this fratricide that moved the historian Herodotus to write. He told the old story of the Persian Wars to remind Greeks of a time when they stood united instead of destroying one another. During the war, Athenian patrols intercepted a messenger. He carried a letter from the Persian king Artaxerxes to Sparta, and the letter revealed something almost comic. The most powerful man on earth was confused. The Spartans, the king complained, kept sending envoys. Each one said something different. He could not work out what they actually wanted. And the truth was, the Spartans did not know either. They wanted Athens destroyed, but they would not commit. Persian help always came with strings attached. So Sparta hesitated, and Athens learned a lesson. Peace or no peace, Persia still loomed over everything, a power to be feared. After 10 years of fighting, Athens and Sparta paused. A peace was signed in 421 BC, and Athens stood strong. Then, around 416 BC, a young man stood up to speak. His name was Alcibiades. Young, brilliant, beautiful, and dangerous. He urged the assembly to send a great fleet across the sea to attack Syracuse, the richest Greek city in Sicily, and ultimately to conquer the entire island. Sicily was a glittering prize, rich in grain, crowded with wealthy Greek colonies. Some Athenians dreamed of ruling the whole Mediterranean, the way the great king ruled Persia, of turning the sea itself into an Athenian lake. Once Sicily fell, they imagined the rest would follow. Carthage in Africa, the Etruscans in Italy, all of it theirs. On a handful of flimsy excuses and a hunger for more, the assembly voted for war. Alcibiades was extraordinary, a born commander, brave, cunning, magnetic. As the ward of Pericles himself, the great architect of Athens, he had been raised almost as a prince, groomed to lead the city one day. Then, his own city turned on him. Accused of crimes, he was condemned and forced into exile, so he fled, of all places, to Sparta, to the enemy, and there, bitter and unforgiving, he set out to ruin Athens. He told the Spartans exactly how to save Syracuse, and he gave them a deadlier idea still: fortify a permanent fort in Attica on Athens' own doorstep and strangle her From there, the Spartans did precisely that. Far away in Sicily, the dream curdled. For 3 long campaigning seasons, the Athenians besieged Syracuse, and then everything reversed. The fleet and the army found themselves trapped, penned inside the great harbor they had come to conquer. It was 413 BC. The Syracusans closed the trap. More than 160 triremes were lost. Thousands of men were killed or dragged into captivity. Not one Athenian got away free to carry the news home. And so, for a long time, Athens did not know. The city went on believing it was winning, basking in a happy illusion. While its sons lay dead in a distant harbor, the assembly still dreamed of conquest. Until one ordinary day, a stray mariner sailed into the Piraeus. He stepped into a barber's shop and spoke of the disaster, as if everyone already knew. The barber stared at him, then asked him to explain. Then the barber bolted. He ran the 4.5 miles up the road to Athens to tell the magistrates what he had heard. And with that frantic run, the truth finally reached the city. The greatest fleet Greece had ever launched was gone. The army was gone. And Athens, the city that had dreamed of ruling the sea, now stood fatally exposed, with an enemy fort on her doorstep and an empire that no longer trusted her. The wound was self-inflicted. No Persian army had done this. Athens, drunk on ambition, lured by a brilliant traitor, had sailed across the world to destroy itself. And now, watching and waiting, the Persians began to move back in. And the most dangerous of those watchers were not Greek at all. The lead was taken by 2 men, satraps, provincial governors of the great king of Persia, whose lands run along the eastern edge of the Athenian Empire, in the western part of what is today Turkey. The first is Tissaphernes, wily, slippery, untrustworthy. His capital sits at Sardis, and his domain covers west-central Asia Minor. He is a man who keeps every promise only until the moment it stops being useful. The second is Pharnabazos, a noble Persian warrior who rules the northwest of Anatolia from a headquarters near the Sea of Marmara. Where Tissaphernes schemes, Pharnabazos fights. 2 rival governors, 2 ambitions, both reaching for the same prize. And both send envoys hurrying west to Sparta, with cities and islands ready to revolt, all carrying one irresistible invitation. Come east. Fight Athens on her own doorstep. We will pay. Uncertain which offer to take, the Spartans turn to a man who has been living among them. Alcibiades. He tells them to cross to Asia and join Tissaphernes at Sardis. But Alcibiades has his own reasons for wanting to leave Greece. With his usual recklessness, he has seduced the wife of one of Sparta's 2 kings and fathered her child. And the woman, by all accounts, is so smitten that she makes no secret of it. Before the affair can reach the ears of the betrayed king, Alcibiades takes ship for Asia and presents himself to Tissaphernes. In the satrap, he finds someone every bit as devious as himself. The 2 get along splendidly. Alcibiades arranges a meeting between Tissaphernes and the Spartans who have followed him across the sea. And in that disgraceful conference, the Spartans agree to sell something that is not theirs to sell: the freedom of all the Greeks of Asia. The very freedom whose defense had once triggered the great wars between Greece and Persia generations before. Now, Sparta hands those Greeks back to the great king, like a gift. The price? That Persia supply enough help and, above all, enough money to defeat Athens. Sparta has come to liberate the Greek world. Instead, it bargains it away. Alcibiades assumes the matter is settled. The deal is done, Athens is finished. But the Athenians reappear unexpectedly. The historian Thucydides, who lives through all of this, makes a sharp observation. Democracies, he says, are at their best in a crisis, and after the catastrophe at Syracuse, Athens faces the supreme crisis of its entire history. So Athens rallies, she moves to stop the gold bleeding out of her treasury, and she appoints 10 councillors, charged with reviewing every proposal before it reaches the People's Assembly. For years, the Assembly has governed by a constant flood of popular votes on every question, large and small. The 10 councillors are a brake on that impulse, a measure of balance against the passions of the crowd. It is a quiet revolution. The city that prized its raw democracy more than anything now admits, in its darkest hour, that pure democracy alone has not been enough. One of these councillors deserves a closer look. Sophocles, the great tragic playwright, the man who gave us Oedipus Rex. He is the most respected figure in all of Athens. In his long life, he has commanded ships in war and managed the treasury of the empire. By now, he is very old. His memory stretches all the way back to the Battle of Salamis, where, as a boy of 17, reputedly the handsomest youth in Athens, he was chosen to lead the victory dance. Now that same man labors to lift his city out of ruin, and the new regime works. Within a few months, Athens does the impossible. She buys timber from the northern kingdom of Macedon. She lays down the keels of new warships, and she conscripts the whole citizenry into service, every able man to the oars, exactly as her grandfathers had done at Salamis. Out of the ashes, a fleet rises. The Athenians send it across the sea to the island of Samos, and from that island base, the wounded city turns at last to face her enemies, against Sparta, against Persia, in the waters of Asia Minor. Settled in at Sardis, Alcibiades now gives the advice that will outlive him. It will shape the wars of Greece for the next 80 years. Do not let either Greek side win. Support both. Keep each just strong enough to wear the other down. Let Athens and Sparta exhaust themselves, and Persia stays the strongest of the three. Tissaphernes, who loves a double game, finds this counsel perfect. On paper, Persia is Sparta's ally. Persian gold, in exchange for the Greek cities of Ionia, returned to the empire one day. But under that pretense, Tissaphernes quietly starves the Spartan war effort. The money arrives late, or short, or not at all. The Spartans only slowly realize they are being played. The year is now 411 BC, and Athens reels. The Athenian fleet lies at Samos, just off the Asian coast, close enough to swim across to Mount Mycale. It sits at the very center of all this intrigue, and the men of that fleet have not forgotten the exile they still admire. The common sailors, democratic to the bone, had always loved Alcibiades. They believed his exile was unjust, so they send him a messenger with an extraordinary offer. Come and lead, not the city of Athens, but the fleet itself, which is becoming a power of its own. He is weary of Spartans and Persians alike, and he hungers to reclaim the role his kinsman Pericles once held. So Alcibiades agrees. He sails down to Samos, and the exile becomes one of the fleet's generals, restored at last to the Athenian cause. The chameleon has changed his colors one more time. Meanwhile, the Spartans have had enough of Tissaphernes. They remember another Persian, the reliable Pharnabazos, who governs near the Hellespont and has also offered to help destroy Athens. So they abandon Ionia, Ephesus, Samos, the whole southern theater. They load their ships and dash north toward the narrow waters that matter most of all, the Hellespont, the strait that carries the Black Sea down into the Aegean. Here, almost 70 years earlier, Xerxes had spanned the channel with a great bridge of boats to march his vast army into Greece in the spring of 480 BC. Here the Athenians later recaptured the crossing and carried home the bridge cables. But above all, the Hellespont is the lifeline of Athens, a great city that imports even its wheat and its fish. Most of the grain that feeds Athens comes down through that narrow channel, in great annual fleets from the Black Sea, the Crimea, and the lands beyond. Black Sea cities paid tribute carved in stone on the Acropolis. And now the Spartans grasp the terrible truth. Seize the strait, and you can starve Athens into surrender without ever marching on the city. The news of Spartans in the Hellespont strikes Athens like a death sentence. And while Tissaphernes schemed and stalled and starved the Spartans of pay, the other Persian governor, Pharnabazos, fights at their side. When the Athenians chase the Spartans north into the Hellespont and dig in, the two fleets collide twice inside the narrow strait. The Hellespont is no quiet bay. The current sweeps down it like a river, dragging ships out of line. Crews must fight the enemy and the water at once, hauling on their oars just to hold position. Twice they clash here, and twice, against every expectation, Athens wins. The second clash is the Battle of Abydos, fought off the town where Xerxes once moored his bridge of boats across the strait. Here, the Athenian ships bear down on the fleeing Spartans, and here, Pharnabazos cannot hold back. He mounts, rallies his horsemen, and rides into the sea itself, impetuous, heroic, doomed. His lancers cannot turn back wooden hulls and bronze rams. The battle is lost, but Pharnabazos is not broken. That very winter, he promises the Spartans something they need far more than his cavalry. He promises to keep paying. And that promise is everything, because Sparta has no treasury, no empire, effectively no money at all. It is an honor society of warriors summoned to fight for others, hoarding glory but never gold. Yet a war fleet runs on thousands of skilled rowers, and skilled rowers must be paid. Only Persian silver can do it. So Pharnabazos pays the wages and provides the winter quarters. He withdraws to his capital at Dasilium, south of the Sea of Marmara, and digs in beside a great lake with his cavalry. On the coast, he raises a fort, garrisoned by his own hired Persian soldiers. Beside that fort sits a prize, Cyzicus, a city once loyal to Athens, now seized by Sparta. Here the Spartan fleet shelters for the winter, drilling its Persian-funded crews, waiting for spring. It feels safe, tucked under the guns of a Persian fort, with cavalry a short ride away. But word reaches the Athenians, and three generals make a decision. Alcibiades and his colleagues will take Cyzicus back. More than that, they will wreck the Spartan fleet so completely that Persia stops believing Sparta can win and stops paying the bill that keeps the war alive. They slip out of Sestos at the mouth of the Hellespont, under cover of darkness. Past the Spartan watchposts they go, silent, so no warning can run ahead of them. They row by night and hide ashore by day. Their last night they spend on a tiny island in the middle of the Sea of Marmara. There, on that island, Alcibiades gathers the men and tells them the plain truth. There is no money left, nothing to live on. If they want to eat, and beyond that to be rich and free, they must fight at sea, fight on land, and storm walled cities to win it all back. The men roar their approval. He always could move them. The enemy has stopped worrying. All winter, the Athenian fleet went unseen and seemed to melt away. They think it gone. In fact, it is bearing down on them in the dark, and the weather turns conspirator. A heavy rain drives the Spartan coast watchers into their shelters. The fleet glides in unseen. In the black hours before dawn, they put an army ashore north of the city. Its orders are simple: march to the wall, wait. When the signal comes, storm the landward side while the fleet takes the harbor. The trap is half set. Now for the cunning half. Years before, in the north of Greece, Alcibiades served under Phormio, the finest Athenian tactician after Themistocles. Phormio taught him a trick: lure your enemy out of his strong position, the way a bird tempts a snake, by dangling a target he cannot resist. Then strike once he has left his cover and broken his line. Alcibiades makes himself the bait. With a small squadron of triremes, he rides forward and bursts out of the wall of rain into open sunshine, straight into the whole Spartan fleet at its morning drills. They see a handful of ships. They assume some careless Athenians have blundered in. So they break off and give chase, and leave the harbor wide open behind them. Then Alcibiades wheels around to face them. Too late, the Spartans see the truth. They are caught between two Athenian fleets. They run for the mainland and beach their ships. He lands his handful of marines, lines them up as if a whole army stands behind, and falls on the enemy as they scramble ashore. Across the water, his colleagues move. Thrasybulus strikes the far end of the stranded ships. Theramenes races to fetch the waiting army. Down the mountain pour Pharnabazos and his Persian hirelings, hundreds of them, into the fight. For a moment, it hangs in the balance. Then Theramenes arrives, and the balance tips. Mindaros, the Spartan commander, is cut down. His fleet is routed and chased to the fort. Few men in all of history were as elated as the Athenians that day, beating Sparta and Persia together. Soon after, the Athenians intercept a message. The defeated Spartan officer is writing home to his magistrates, asking what to do. It is short, so short it amuses them, in the clipped Spartan style that gives us our word laconic. After Laconia, the Spartan land, it reads, in full: ships lost, Mindaros dead, men starving, at a loss what to do. After that humiliation, the Spartans are lost. The crushing defeat at Cyzicus has cost them the favor of the Persian governor Pharnabazos, and without his support, their cause is sinking. They do not know what to do. For 2 long years their fortunes drift. Then, from the east, a new figure arrives, and everything changes. His name is Cyrus, a Persian prince named for the great conqueror who founded the empire. His father, the great king, has sent him with a single order: help Sparta win the war. The king has decided the time for half measures is over. Recovering the Greek cities of Ionia and the tribute they pay is worth a decisive blow. Understand what this war has always been for Persia. Not honor, not glory, money, revenue from the Eastern Greeks. The whole struggle, seen from the Persian court, is an accounting problem, and the king has finally found a profitable answer. Cyrus becomes the friend and paymaster of a new Spartan commander, Lysander, the greatest strategic genius Sparta ever produced. Their partnership is simple and devastating. Persian gold pays for Spartan operations. Where Athens once ruled the waves on its own silver, Sparta now fights on the wealth of an empire it could never have matched alone. There is a moment that tells you everything about Lysander. At a feast, he sits gloomy, distracted. Cyrus asks what he wants and offers him anything at all. Anything. And Lysander asks only for this: 1 more obol a day in pay for his rowers. Not gold for himself, money to keep his oarsmen pulling. That single coin is what occupies the mind of Sparta's finest. He gets it, and with it, he mounts campaign after campaign against Athens. Patient, relentless, funded. He is waiting for the one mistake that will end the war. In the narrow waters of the Hellespont, the Athenian fleet gives it to him. The place is called Aegospotami, Goat Rivers, a bleak stretch of shore where the Athenians have beached their ships and scattered to find food. Lysander watches, he waits, and then, through pure cunning, he strikes the fleet while it sits ashore, helpless and undefended. In a single afternoon, the navy that ruled the Aegean for 50 years is destroyed. With that, Lysander wins the Peloponnesian War. He sails for Athens itself. The city, starving and surrounded, has no fleet left to save it. After a generation of fighting, the most powerful city in Greece opens its gates and surrenders. Lysander does not raze the city. He is more precise than that. He tears down the long walls, the great corridor of fortification that ran from Athens to its harbor at the Piraeus. Those walls were the secret of Athenian power, the umbilical cord that fed the city from the sea. And as a flourish, a cruel piece of theater, he summons the flute girls who once played at Athenian parties to pipe sweet tunes while his engineers pull the stones apart. All of it made possible by Persia. And the Persians get exactly what they wanted. The Athenian Empire is broken apart. The Spartans, whom Persia had underestimated, though they should not have, now hand the Greek cities of Asia back to the great king, at least for a time. Money had launched the intervention, and money is repaid. The Eastern Greeks return to paying their tribute, as the king always intended. Inside Athens, the wreckage spreads. As the long walls come down, a pro-Spartan regime of 30 tyrants seizes power. They turn on the harbor itself, demolishing the naval installations and the ship sheds of the Piraeus. These were the pride of the Athenian fleet, the foundation of the city's greatness for half a century. The very docks that built the empire are torn to splinters. Across the Greek world, it would seem only reasonable to conclude that this is the end of Athens. The walls gone, the fleet ash, the harbor in ruins. And yet, the Delphic oracle had once proclaimed Athens unsinkable, declaring that the city would ride forever upon the waves, and so it would prove. Persian gold had brought Athens down. But within 10 years, by one of history's strangest turns, the Persians themselves would raise her up again. The city that rode upon the waves was not finished. Not yet.